It was a cold November evening in 1946 when Texarkana, a quiet border town split between Texas and Arkansas, became the backdrop for one of the most chilling and enduring mysteries in American history. What began as an ordinary night would soon spiral into a nightmare that still haunts the memories of its residents and the imaginations of true crime enthusiasts across the globe. The events that unfolded in the spring and summer of that year would forever alter the fabric of this small community. A series of brutal attacks committed under the veil of darkness left a trail of terror and unanswered questions. The assailant, later dubbed the Phantom Killer, emerged like a shadowy specter, stalking lovers' lanes and isolated roads, leaving behind victims and an overwhelming sense of dread. The town was gripped by fear, its residents locking their doors and peering out of their windows, wondering if the next knock on the door would bring doom. Jimmy Hollis and Mary Jean Larry were among the first to encounter the Phantom. It was late at night on February 22, 1946, when the couple parked their car on a secluded road after a movie date. The crisp air was filled with the occasional rustle of leaves, and the faint glow of Texarkana's lights could be seen in the distance. They had barely settled in when an unknown figure appeared, seemingly out of nowhere, bathed in the soft glow of their car's headlights. He wore a white mask, crude and featureless, with slits for eyes that revealed nothing of the person behind it. In a voice muffled and cold, the man ordered them out of the car. The couple complied, terror written across their faces. Without warning, he struck Jimmy with the barrel of his gun, fracturing his skull. Mary Jean was then forced to flee into the darkness, barefoot and terrified, her heart pounding in her chest. She eventually flagged down a motorist who took her to safety. Both survived, but their harrowing experience marked the beginning of a reign of terror that would escalate in the coming months. The second attack came on March 24, 1946, and it proved fatal. Richard Griffin and Polly Ann Moore, a couple in their 20s, were found dead in Griffin's car on a rural road. The scene was macabre. Griffin had been shot in the back of the head, execution style, while Polly Ann's body lay sprawled across the back seat, her life also claimed by gunfire. The discovery shook the community to its core, and whispers of a deranged killer began to circulate. Law enforcement was at a loss, with little evidence to go on and no clear motive behind the brutal slayings. Texarkana was not prepared for the nightmare that unfolded. The town's population, a mix of hardworking families, farmers, and small business owners, was unaccustomed to such violence. Many believed that this sort of horror belonged to the big cities, far removed from their quiet lives. But as weeks turned into months, it became clear that the Phantom Killer was no ordinary criminal. His attacks were methodical, his ability to evade capture uncanny. The third attack came in April, and it bore the signature of the Phantom's growing brazenness. Paul Martin and Betty Jo Booker, both teenagers, were last seen leaving a local dance around midnight. Their bodies were discovered the next day, a mile apart. Paul had been shot multiple times, his body left on the side of the road, while Betty Jo's lifeless form was found in the woods. Her saxophone, a cherished possession, was missing from the scene and would not be recovered for months. The brutality of their deaths sparked outrage and fear. Parents forbade their children from going out at night, and the once bustling streets of Texarkana became eerily deserted after sunset. The local authorities, overwhelmed and under-equipped, called in the Texas Rangers to aid in the investigation. One of the most notable figures to join the effort was Captain Manuel Lone Wolf Gonzalez. He was a seasoned lawman known for his unyielding pursuit of justice. Gonzalez's arrival brought a glimmer of hope to the beleaguered town, but even he admitted that the Phantom's ability to strike and vanish without a trace presented an unprecedented challenge. The case was a puzzle with too many missing pieces, and each day without an arrest heightened the community's sense of vulnerability. By May, the Phantom Killer struck again, this time targeting Virgil and Katie Starks. They were a married couple living on the outskirts of Texarkana. Unlike the previous attacks, this one occurred in the sanctuary of their home. Virgil was shot twice through a window while sitting in his favorite armchair, listening to the radio. Katie, hearing the gunshots, rushed to her husband's side, only to be shot in the face. Miraculously, despite her injuries, Katie managed to escape and run to a neighbor's house for help. Her survival provided investigators with a crucial eyewitness account, but the description of the assailant was frustratingly vague. A masked figure who moved with eerie confidence and precision. As the summer wore on, the attacks ceased, but the fear lingered. Residents armed themselves, forming neighborhood watch groups and implementing curfews. Businesses suffered as the town's nightlife dwindled to nothing. The press, both local and national, dubbed the unknown assailant the Phantom Killer, a name that seemed to capture the essence of his ability to elude capture. The investigation, despite its intensity, yielded few results. Numerous suspects were questioned, and some arrests were made, but none of the individuals brought in could be definitively linked to the crimes. One suspect, U.L. Swinney, a petty criminal with a history of theft and violence, became a prime focus after his wife claimed he had confessed to being the Phantom. However, her testimony was inconsistent, and no physical evidence tied Swinney to the murders. He was eventually imprisoned for unrelated charges, and the killings stopped. But the lack of concrete proof left the case open to speculation. Over the years, the Phantom Killer became a part of Texarkana's folklore, a dark chapter in its history that refused to be closed. The murders inspired numerous books, documentaries, and even a fictionalized film, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which further cemented the case's place in popular culture. But for the residents who lived through those harrowing months, the Phantom Killer was more than just a legend. He was a shadow that loomed over their lives. He was a reminder of the fragility of safety and the depths of human malevolence. The Phantom Killer's identity remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of American true crime. Some theorists believe he was a transient who moved on after his killing spree, while others suggest he may have died or been incarcerated for other crimes. A few even speculate that he was a local, someone who blended seamlessly into the fabric of the community, hiding in plain sight. The lack of definitive answers has allowed the story to persist, a chilling enigma that continues to captivate those who delve into the darker corners of history. For the people of Texarkana, the legacy of the Phantom Killer is both a cautionary tale and a source of resilience. The town has grown and changed in the decades since those dark days. But the memory of 1946 lingers. It is a reminder of a time when fear gripped every corner, when neighbors looked at each other with suspicion, and when the sound of a creaking floorboard could send a chill down one's spine. Every year around the anniversary of the attacks, local historians and true crime enthusiasts revisit the case, piecing together the fragments of evidence and revisiting old theories. The question remains, who was the Phantom Killer, and why did he choose Texarkana as the stage for his gruesome acts? The answers, if they exist, are locked away in the past, perhaps buried with the killer himself. But as long as the story is told, the Phantom Killer will remain a haunting presence, a ghost of Texarkana's history that refuses to be forgotten. Today, the town has found ways to cope with its dark legacy. The annual screening of The Town That Dreaded Sundown at Spring Lake Park has become a tradition, drawing both locals and visitors. Intrigued by the macabre history, it is a strange juxtaposition of fear and fascination, a way for the community to reclaim the narrative and face the shadows of its past. The younger generations, who did not live through the terror, view the story with a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. But for the survivors and their descendants, the Phantom Killer is more than a tale to be retold. It is a reminder of the fragility of peace and the resilience of a community that refused to be broken. As the sun sets over Texarkana and the town's streets grow quiet, one cannot help but feel a lingering presence, a whisper of the past carried on the wind. The Phantom Killer may have vanished, but his story endures, a chilling testament to the darkness that can lurk just beyond the edge of the light. And as the years pass, the question remains, will the mystery ever be solved, or will the Phantom Killer forever remain a ghost in the annals of Texarkana's history?